Okay, so, hi, my name is Mark. I work for PSC, right? We're a custom consulting company. And I am here to talk to you today about the graph with one API to rule them all. And there will be some JavaScript in this. I swear to God, there will be some JavaScript in this, and you will all hate it. I hope you will hate it. All right. So, how many of you actually work with Office 365 on a regular basis? Okay, sweet. Okay, actually, I was quite surprised. How many of you don't know what Office 365 is?
Is it like Word or something?
Okay, so you've all used Office, right? You've all used Word, PowerPoint. Okay, so historically...
Wait, is that true? I think that's becoming less true.
I didn't answer that.
You've never used it?
I've used it.
Oh, okay.
You're asking who used it. I've used it.
Who's never used Word?
Not Google Docs. Microsoft
Dude,
Word.
we're all over the age of 30
Okay,
here,
that's just
and if
curious,
you're not,
that's just
sorry. Okay, so originally, once upon a time, we had Microsoft Office, right? Microsoft tried to dominate the world by being asses and saying, hey, it's our way or the highway. And they were actually very good at that. But ultimately, they realized that the internet and the web was everything, right? So instead of charging everybody a license for having Office installed, and then having email installed, and then having this, this, and this, and this, and it's actually now a number of years ago, some more than I think it's 7 years now, they turned Office 365 into a subscription model, right? So you now pay, instead of paying $100 a year, you now pay $10 a month because that feels better. Huh. Look at that. And so Office 365 is the corporate. You get your email, you get Word, you get PowerPoint, you get all of these different things. You actually get more than you did before, but you actually pay more for it. So ultimately, they came up with this idea that said, hey, the center of your universe is you. What do you do? And they came up with this idea that, hey, you know what? If we had a graph database, we could actually do some really intelligent things about trying to tie you to who you are, what you're doing, who you're doing it with, right? So that as a corporate user, when you actually open up Office in the morning or whatever it is, you could say, hey, I know that you were working on this with John, or John was working on this you might be interested in because you do a lot of stuff with John, right? And a graph database makes an awful lot of sense for that. And for those of you who don't know what a graph database is, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, so all right. So a graph, right? Very, very quickly, a graph database. So in the old world of relational databases, if you wanted to do a query about show me all of the documents that I have worked on, and then I had to go and show me all the stuff that somebody else has worked on and somebody else had worked on, very, very quickly you got to an unrealistic performance time because you're having to go all over the place in a relational system. And it really didn't work. And I want to say it was Facebook, but it might not have been. But Facebook was definitely one of the ones that started the graph database. What is really quick in a NoSQL system is doing a lookup. What is really cheap is data. So what a graph database does is it stores connections. So when you say, show me all the things that I have done, it's 5 really quick lookups. And compare that to something that somebody else has done. That's 5 more really quick lookups. But to be able to do that, you have to store all of the connections in data. So that's the trade-off. The trade-off is you have a lot more data being stored than you do in a relational system, but making the connections from each one is substantially faster. So that's what they built originally. This was the Microsoft Graph. It was all about you and what you do on a daily basis. And they then went, oh, you know what? Why don't we put an API on the front of this? But then it very quickly became something else, because they do get the relationships and the insights out of the graph, but it turns out that the Microsoft Graph is actually a proxy to a whole bunch of other REST API systems that already existed. So there was already a mail REST API, there was already a documents API, there was already a calendar API. So this is great. But you know what? If I can get to each one of these individually through the same API, that makes developers' lives better. Right? And we like developers.
Cassandra?
Cassandra?
Was that the Facebook? Was that it? The Facebook graph library? No?
That I don't know. I don't know. So the insights was great, but hey, you know what? If we have graph.microsoft.com/your calendar, /your mail, /your files, /your users, that makes developers' life great. And oddly enough, Microsoft have always been about making developers' lives better, because if you can build applications easily on the Microsoft platform, people will build on the Microsoft platform. And guess what that means? More subscriptions. Way, we make more money. Right? Well, the interesting thing is, this was actually so successful, other parts of Microsoft went, hey, hang on a minute, can we have in on this as well? So this idea of just having the graph database grew to being an API proxy. So Microsoft, through the Graph API, now surface their security APIs. I mean, even to the point of they surface Intune, which is their mobile application deployment management system, or deploying groups and cloud security and all sorts of other stuff that has nothing to do with who you are and what you do, is all now exposed through the graph. So if you want to interface with Microsoft technology in the cloud, whether it is their Office 365 or their development platform, Azure, right, as opposed to AWS or Heroku or whatever, their cloud development platform is Azure. Well, Azure uses Azure Active Directory. Active Directory is their way of doing user authentication and what have you. That's tied directly into Office 365. Look at that. All right? So if you want to be able to do this, you're going to use the graph. And then what they built on top of that was a whole ton of SDKs. And this is where the old Microsoft isn't the new Microsoft, because the old Microsoft was you're either doing it in .NET and you're doing it our way or nothing. Bill Gates moved on. The new guy came in and said, no, we want to be open to everybody. So all of these technologies have an SDK capability of accessing the graph. The me of 10 years ago hates me right now because I would never have believed I would become a Microsoft guy. But what happened was their world came to me, not the other way around. To this day, I've never written a line of .NET, and I never will. I don't need to, because somebody else created all of these APIs that I can use. Right? I generally write Node applications. That may surprise you that I actually do development. I usually write Node applications and access it with JavaScript. Right? And they're all good with that, because they realized that that makes them money. Okay, cool. So,
They're okay with that?
the what?
They're okay with that part?
The making money part. Well, I'm sorry, I kind of work in that world, and yes.
I do too.
We all like making money. Stop it. Even us communists from Europe.
The bad hombres.
So, all right. So, what I'm going to show you guys today is how they've basically made your world so easy to work with their technology. So if you want to be able to access Azure or Office 365, they use OAuth. Normal, boring, plain OAuth, like we all do. Who are you? What do you want? And your application is only going to do that, and only if your administrator lets you. All of that's controlled through Azure Active Directory as an application. So if I want my application to talk on behalf of you to your data, because you're giving me permission to do so, it goes through an OAuth system, right? Everybody good with that? Mostly, yeah? Okay, cool. Because I ain't explaining that type. All right, so that's it, done. All right. So what I wanted to do is I want to show you that from the developer world, why this is so cool. So now you get why I say it's one API to rule them all, because now they have one graph API that actually interacts with a whole. It's basically a proxy server, but it is their API. You can still go directly to each one of those REST endpoints if you really want to, but why would you, right? Because certainly within Microsoft, each one of those REST APIs has been built by a different product group. They have different format. There's no standardization on how they did it because they did it at a different time, a different group. The graph is incredibly standardized, and internally within Microsoft, you don't get to play in the graph unless you play by the rules of the graph. Again, that makes our lives much easier. So they created this thing called the Graph API. All right, so this is their sample application, and I am going to sign in with my dev account. And what I'm really doing is I've already given permission to this application to do absolutely anything it wants within my organization. Right? Because I trust them. Because hey, why wouldn't you? It's Microsoft, right?
What could possibly go wrong?
Okay, right.
We're talking about the same Microsoft.
Yeah, that's the same Microsoft. Yeah, no, really. So what we have up here, and I realize this is not that way. Okay. graph.microsoft.com/me. Run a query. Brilliant. Okay, there's me. Right? You can blur all this shit out later. Right?
Yes.
That's me. And, okay, cool. So what is the query for my profile?
Get mother's maiden name in there.
Shut up. What is my photo? There's my photo. Right?
Your photo.
So, but what they're doing through this is they're basically giving you interactive examples of how you use their system to get to the data that you really want. Right? Here's the items in my OneDrive. OneDrive is their version of Dropbox. I'm not going to show you that. All right? Here's my manager. Well, that's me. Okay? No, not doing that. Live. Okay. So what they also do is they're like, okay, let's just go down here. Let's see some more samples. So these are all the samples that they give you to all the different endpoints and all the different stuff that you want to be able to do within the graph. So it's everything from users, user groups, mail. I can actually get my mail. Hey, let's go take a look at my mail. All right. So if I want to write an application that uses my mail, let's get mail. Let's send an email. Whoa. Okay. So if you want an application that wants to send an email, done. Right, I've just sent me an email.
You could check it there.
Yeah, you could.
The what?
You could check it through the graph to get your.
I could check it through the graph, but I'm going to show you this way.
So you can read your other emails.
So you look, it's oh look, there you go. Look, I have an email. All right, so being able to send an email, pretty common thing that you need to do within a corporate application. How do I do that? This is how I do it. Right? It's right there. And here's some demo data. So we've all read documentation, right? But isn't it a pain in the ass to copy and paste it and go, it didn't work? Why? Oh, because I can't copy and paste. All right? So I want to look at my inbox rules. I mean, really getting deep down into your organization and what you do. Any mail that has hello world in it. Okay, whatever. Okay, fine. All right. So, and I'm kind of winging this because we didn't have any better speakers than me. I think I'm joking. All right, so.
All right, no more beer for Mark.
Okay, so Planner is their version of to-dos. All right, it's a task-based system. SharePoint sites is files, and I will get to batching, which sounds cool and kind of is. And then we've got security and applications, notifications, all sorts of stuff, all sorts of examples.
Hey Mark, what does the Teams do? What kind of stuff can you do with Teams? I just saw
I'm glad you asked. And I'm going to ignore your question.
Fair enough.
All right, so
I think you meant for now. Ignoring this question for now.
oh sure, yes, no, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, no, that's what I meant, yeah. So as well as all of this, which is kind of cool and all, what they've also done is they've given you the same thing in Postman. So within Postman, I can go in and I can create all these things, because really this is the world we work in, right? Get a user token. And if I'm dumb enough to show my environmental variables, please blur it out.
I just want to inject. I was just.
Oh.
So there's an open source form of Postman. It's called Postwoman.
Okay.
It's real.
Sure. Okay.
Just letting you know. I
All
just
right.
learned this.
So these are all of the scopes that I have. It's not all of them, it's the ones that I came up with. So if I come to an example and it says you don't have the rights to do that, that'll be a great example as I'm going through this.
Access tokens last.
And there's my access token.
Is
So
that good for a day? Sorry.
this is good for weeks.
Hold on.
No, don't worry. There'll be video later.
So, seeing as somebody brought Teams up, alright, so this is Teams, right? For those of you that have used Slack, Teams is Microsoft's version of Slack, except it's very deeply integrated within their ecosystem, right? So Slack tries to sell you that you can integrate your entire ecosystem into Slack, which you can. But Teams is out of the box already integrated into your corporate environment.
It's probably cheaper than Slack.
Well, actually, it's free with your Office 365 subscription. So if you already have Office 365, you don't need Slack.
$10 a month, good to go.
$10 a month. Right.
Slack is a per person.
Yeah, so is Office 365.
It's not sponsored by Microsoft.
So we have lots of teams. We have a team is a collaboration team. You've got chat, you've got files, you've got wikis, you've got collaboration space. You know, whatever you want. All right. So let's have a look at teams over here. So I don't know. Let's have a look at my teams. All right. So this is how you do development. You go, oh look, there's my teams. One's called Marky, one's called the test team, one's called the live demo team. That's lucky. All right, so then let's get the ID of the test team. Come on, dumbass. Boom. Right, so let's look at the members of a particular team. So if I go over to that one, and then in there I want the team ID. These are the members of this particular team. All right. So if I want to be able to create a channel in that particular team, and a channel is these sub-sites within the team. I suppose I should. Oh, really? It's like I've been through this before.
I feel like you should have done a talk on Postman.
No.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Postman is a big confusing thing for a lot of people, including me.
If anybody would like to do a talk on Postman, we're looking for talks next month.
And, I mean, the way I end up using it is you can kind of, like, say you log into your application.
And like all good developers, clearly the reason I showed it you that way was because I'm an idiot and I've already done this. All right? Okay, so now we have a channel called Marky here. Oh, look at that! We have a channel called Marky here.
Does a lot.
All right? So, why would you care? Well, in my world, one of the things that you want to avoid is sprawl, right? So you want to be able to give a tool like this to everybody in your organization and them all go nuts on it, right? Apparently the phrase that's right now is go ham on something. I don't even know what that means, but I go nuts on it, right? Which is great. And then they build all of this crap, and then ultimately it all gets laid by the waste and forgotten, and it's a complete waste. So what you want to be able to do is you don't want to say, hey, go build what you want. You want to say, request what you want and I'll build it for you, and I'm going to build some rules that say if you don't use it, I'm going to whack it in 6 months' time. And it avoids things getting out of hand. So being able to build things out like this, like a team or a channel or the groups or the members, gives you much more programmatic control as an organization than you would otherwise within your organization. And hey, guess what? All of those SDKs along the bottom will allow you to do this. It's just a REST API. Right? So you could do this in JavaScript, or not, or whatever language is cool and friendly and happy to you. Now, I did have some notes. Some of the stuff I was going to talk about. There will be some JavaScript, I swear.
You did swear.
I did swear.
Or you promised, or something like that. Whatever you British people do.
Okay, so I'm now going to show you what I consider to be above and beyond features within the graph that are just insanely cool. Right? So let's take a look at deltas. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up get users. Yeah, some users. Here are the users in my organization. And if I go over here and I bring up this particular tab, I've got Billy, Mark, Sarah, and Sean. All right, if I go down here, I've got Billy, Sean, Sarah, all available, one REST API call. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go /delta. It's going to go, right, there you go. There's all of your users, and here's a whole new query that you should use next time. So what this delta is going to do, no, stop. Stop, stupid. Okay, this delta is going to tell me what changed since the last time I asked. Oh my God, have you ever had to go, hey, this is what I've got now. Now figure out what the difference is. Holy crap, the API does it for you.
That seems like a really large chunk of text instead of just like, here's the old timestamp.
That's not the Microsoft way.
I'm sorry. But
I'm just going to ignore you for a moment.
Still really cool.
All right, so I'm going to check. Right, but how do you timestamp managing users? Right, if you have complete control over the application, that's fine. But if you have a SaaS application, you don't have control over that. If I want to do a query across 100 different collaboration sites and tell me what changed since yesterday, I do not want 100 sites with the data and for me to figure out what has changed when I can make one call and say, tell me what's changed. So
Mark, what's the scope for that? I kind of missed that.
So I'm going to change Sean to
not nice to Sean. Fuck that Sean guy.
all right. Why didn't that change? Because I didn't change. I changed his display name. All right, fine. Whatever. All right, there. Sean sucks. I'm sorry. What was the question over here?
I had a question. Like, how do you control the context for the delta?
So
Like how much
not
stuff to
all of the
consider?
different APIs. So you can add /delta onto the end of certain requests, right? So you can't get a delta in the security requests, for example. But there are certain aspects of the graph that will allow you to have a delta by just slapping /delta on the end.
Oh, okay.
So the context can be whatever the hell you just asked for. So give me everybody called Sean, delta. You could do that.
Really?
Yes, you could. Right, so in theory, when I run this now, oh look, Sean sucks, right? This is incredibly useful because what it allows me to do is write a ton less code. Because I don't have to do that compare. I don't have to decide when the date was or show me what since, where. No. Just store the key and ask for that next time. It does make things a lot easier.
The only concern is the stateful. Sorry,
Yep.
the statefulness of the API. So if somebody else makes a call, is it tied to a specific user?
Well, it's just tied to that.
Tied to the URL.
If somebody else gets that, they'll get a different ID. Right? So yes, if it's at an application level, this makes sense. If you're going to hand this out to other people, there you go, that's trouble. A fair point, but you manage it. Right, so
You're, like every time you make that,
Oh.
you're going to get that result.
correct, because this stores the state of what it was before. But you can see I now have a new delta query. So I pick this up and I go, why does it do that? If someone can explain that to me in Postman, I'll be very happy. This now says nothing has changed because you now get a new version of the delta to compare against this time. So every time I request it and something has changed, I get a new one.
So the server must be storing something to know.
Sure.
I
Well,
think it's
just
all
thinking,
there.
right? You queried it a couple times and it was empty. Then you made the change to tell us all Sean sucks.
Right. So
Then we got Sean sucks.
somehow, somewhere, something in Microsoft is using all of this to remember what it had last time.
Well, there's that much there.
How it does that, I have no idea. And frankly, nor do I care. I don't need to know how it works. I just need to use it. Sorry. And if anyone from Microsoft is watching, All right, so the other thing I wanted to show you was batching. What time is it? Oh, I'm making this really stretch out. Okay,
Good work.
and I haven't written any JavaScript yet either.
Oh yeah. When
So-
we come back from the break.
Here's a batch. This is really cool, right? So instead of writing 4 APIs and having them go in promises and all come back at different times and what have you, wouldn't it be better to have all of that done on the server, right? So you didn't have to wait for the promises, the overhead, and all this kind of stuff. So right now I'm combining 3 different graph requests into one, and they are getting parallelized on the server. And there's your answer, there's me, there's some stuff about me, there's an email. You can actually combine multiple queries into one shot.
Does this often get compared to GraphQL, the ability to do this? No. I mean, I get that you're technically hitting different endpoints, but it all being one graph now, it starts to look kind of like how GraphQL.
Sure it does, but guess what? I didn't have to write any GraphQL to do this.
You kind of, I mean, it looks kind of like
Basically,
GraphQL.
Kind of the same.
I don't have to host a GraphQL server.
I
don't have to
the
configure a
request.
GraphQL
You
server.
you figure out which data
It's
you need to do. and you
exactly
model
the same as GraphQL, except I don't have to do GraphQL,
it. Right.
which saves me time and money because I'd have to host the GraphQL as well. Yeah, no, absolutely. And for those of you that don't know how GraphQL works, we need a talk on GraphQL.
I think we have.
Yeah.
I think we did.
Yeah, but it's probably 6 months, a year ago. I'm sure it's all changed now.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. All right. Okay, so the last demo I'm actually going to do is actually some JavaScript.
I don't believe it.
Because ultimately, that's really what you want. Okay. Yes, it is.
Yes.
You had to ruin it, didn't you? You had to ruin it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go over here and I'm going to cheat, because what I want to do is I actually want to grab that. All right.
This is looking crazy.
Stop. I'm going to go all the way back down here. Oh, that was silly. Undo that. Paste that there. Okay, so I want you to tell me all of my SharePoint sites. Oh, that didn't work.
We can edit this out. Just try it now.
Oh, yeah, no, that totally worked.
See?
Oh, this demo's not going to work very well if that doesn't work. Wink. Am I even logged in? Okay, all right, so let's edit this bit out. Okay, so let's say I have a bunch of sites and that is a site ID, right? That particular site ID happens to be this particular site ID, Hello World, okay? And what you can see here in my SharePoint site is a very, very small Excel file. Okay, you guys can see the Excel file. Probably not on the video, but there's an Excel file. And if I go back over here and I do...
That's why we record this thing.
One of the things I can do in the graph is within my Excel, so that is my site. And then I can treat this like OneDrive, and I can actually go to that particular list, and I can get the items within the list. That's my item ID. You're just going to have to, we could go through this, but I'm going to break it again. You're just going to have to trust that I can reference this Excel file, okay? Just believe
We
me.
believe you.
We trust you.
Believe me. Right? And then within the Excel file, I can actually, through a REST API, get into the workbook, the worksheets. I can get a sheet, and I can get the tables from that particular sheet.
That's crazy talk.
That's what the hell?
Oh man, you had me going.
Shut up.
It's like, I don't know if it's JavaScript or not, but it's pretty cool.
Oh, it's because I'm doing a post. Who the hell put the... Which idiot put this post on here?
On your
Postman.
That's why it doesn't bloody work. It's all a bloody post.
Postman only does posts.
No, I'm just a dumbass. Alright, so let's try this again. Like,
I'm impressed at your URL hacking there.
there you
That's
go.
pretty
Alright, so
impressive. Is that right?
Wow.
I guess I should have put more thought and time into this. Sorry.
You're
All right.
Great, Mark.
See if I cared.
No, you should have gone after me.
So what this is now telling me is here's some tables within this Excel sheet. All right. So I have a passing yards table. I have a product sales table. I have a product stacked table. All right. So
And these are sheets within your, or whatever, they're tables within
these
your
are actually
spreadsheet.
tables within my Excel sheet. So I can reference what are the worksheets. What's the name of the sheets?
So I know I'm just like asking for too much, but
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you query those then? The way
Yes.
that you would?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
You modify
Yes. Hey, look.
Is that really an
Um,
access database?
All right, so let's do this. Let's insert a new table.
I've been using Google Sheets for too long.
All right,
Is it
and
really
then the table
stupid?
design, we're going to call this. Okay, now watch. I'm going to save this, right? That's now saved up within Office 365. I immediately go back over here, and it is immediately queryable. And somewhere down here, we should have Joe sucks. Right? It's actually that fast. Right? So, okay, that's fine. So I've now got the tables. Well, wouldn't it be cool if I could get a specific table, and then within that specific table, I could actually get the rows and the data. Ah, damn it. Can't type. The rows and the data from that table directly. So we got January 1010 800 and blah 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 blah. All right, let's change this to 2000. Whatever. I don't really care. I've also screwed up my chart. I don't really care. Wow, if I only had a laptop that worked. All right.
Bingo.
So what's really cool about this, in the nerdiest kind of way possible, all right, for those of you that don't use Office 365, they have this capability called co-authoring. So you can work on a document at the same time as somebody else. You make edits, you see it appear. Google may have something similar, okay?
So it's not. I just want to clarify. So like when I'm looking at this, and it's all an Office, and it's all. I mean, we're no longer talking about like a file-based system. They're still calling it XLS or whatever, but it's not.
No, it is.
No, because reading Excel spreadsheets, opening up files and weird ODBC adapters and all that bullshit would take too long.
No, this is Excel.
It's
Are you
Excel in a
saying
browser.
I'm
What
not-
I'm saying is, but the data isn't stored in an Excel file. It's just called that, and you could download it as that, but it's not really fetching it from an Excel file. I'm not knocking it. I'm just trying to wrap my
I
head
bet
around
you it is.
how that data came back so
and
quick.
here's why.
Okay.
So this little thing autosave up here, if I'm working on this in real time with somebody else and we both have autosave on, when I start saving cells, I start seeing the changes. The first time you go to the graph, the connection's really slow to get this out, because what it's doing is it's getting an instance of that. Every time autosave works, it only updates that tiny little instance of the database. So Graph has grabbed a copy of Excel, and then it updates it. Every time you make a save, it pushes a change to what you've grabbed because it's got it in memory. So, watch this. Look, I actually wrote some JavaScript. All right, so Microsoft gives you this really nice little OAuth library called Microsoft Authentication Library. I don't know how it works, but you can copy and paste it into your application. When you do that, you can then use this Graph SDK. I don't know how that works. I don't really care. All right, and then basically here's my application and the scopes I want. I want to be able to read stuff about me, and I want full control, because I'm dead lazy, guys, I gotta tell you. I want full control over all my SharePoint sites. All right, and then that's about it. So then go and log me in, whoop-de-doo. Right, so it then gave me this nice piece of code that I couldn't write myself, but it looks good. All right, that gives me a promise for this API call. Right, looks like modern code. This is all in the SDK.
Zoom in.
Zoom.
Zoom in.
Oh, Control Shift Plus. That's what I usually tell people. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh. Okay. So what we have here is we're making so that what I used in Graph Explorer there was this really long API that really references that particular table, and it gets returned as a promise. So it takes a while, and then the rest of the code moves on. So if I actually show you that in an application, which is this one, right, I'm going to do a refresh of this, pull this up, what you'll see is the first time, what's going to happen is that data's going to come in, and I'm going to paste it into this particular table when I click on that header. So what you saw there was that you saw that it flashed up. That's the OAuth mechanism, making sure that it works in the front end. Are you who you say you are? Can I act on your behalf? Right? But you can see that this data got pulled in, and just for giggles, I'm going to change that to Joe. Watch the saved at the top. Saved. Tap it. You see how fast that one was? Mm-hmm. So the first request took probably 3 seconds. There. Jeez. Come on. The second request took substantially shorter than that. So the first request took 1.6, the second one took 8. So this is why I think it really is Excel, and it's all, and I don't really know.
At the beginning though, like it's pulling all the data through it, but then it's hanging it onto it in the graph, whatever that is. When you make a change in the spreadsheet, it's pushing that to the graph.
The way that the guys from Microsoft explained it is it really is Excel.
Well, then really, maybe Excel just isn't what we use to think
no,
of it as.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's kind of cool. Well, hey, guess what? Here's the other thing that I can do is instead of actually just going into the tables, I can do the exact same thing with charts. So if I go all the way down to the end of here, I can do
fetch the
charts
from the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, so here we go. There's a chart. It's the product stack chart. So if I actually grab the product stack chart,
it looks like a string.
I swear that looks like exactly the same thing.
I think you got greedy, man. You were doing great.
Damn it, it's almost like I knew what I was doing. There you go. Oh, look, charts. Look at that. Let's take the age chart instead. See, I did actually put some prep into this. I was so close to being able to get it to work. All right, so then you get back the, what the heck?
Well, now it says age chart.
It did, and now I don't know what's working. What is supposed to happen is you're supposed to get the base 64 encoded version of that particular chart to come back
an image?
As an image.
Oh shit! That's
right?
Is it like a PNG?
Really cool.
Yeah, it's a PNG.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, it totally is. Or you can just get the data from the table, and using the data from the table, you can redraw the chart. Right? So, not entirely sure how this is useful to anybody, but it is exceptionally cool.
Question.
Yes, sir.
I mean, unless I'm going to give you another segue, can you also post and put to?
You know, if you want to draw tables, draw it the easy way.
Oh god, that's jQuery.
We don't have enough jQuery. If you want to do a talk on jQuery, we're looking for some lightning talks next month. Anyway, go on.
No, so I was wondering, do they have also put and post endpoints where it's like can I say like update this cell with
Yes.
this value? That's cool.
Yes, it is. So one of the things that you can actually do is you can use Excel as a logging database.
That's
You
not
seriously
bad.
can. If you don't have a substantial volume, you can use an Excel file in a SharePoint list as a log this, log this, log this, log this,
Yeah,
log
we've
this.
had so many times where we just have to read certain things from a spreadsheet, and it's always like finding the libraries and doing all this, like finding the right .NET library. to
You're
read.
straight in.
Right. That's. No,
But it has to be in a SharePoint list
That's
or,
fine.
or a
That's
OneDrive.
fine.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
I actually recommended something like this to a client of mine because they want to do exactly that. They want to take emails and send it into an Excel spreadsheet. So there was an actual template that's part of 365, and many, many templates in there that actually connect those two applications to talk to each other.
Yes. Yeah. And when we don't have any other speakers, I'm going to show you Microsoft Flow, which is built into Office 365, which is also nothing to do with JavaScript, but it's insanely cool because it's all REST service based on exactly all of this. Right? So, in summary, and I'm not quite sure what the purpose of this really was, I got to tell you, like 10 years ago, I hated Microsoft, right? And I'm not a fanboy now, but I tell you what, they've made my life as a developer infinitely easier by giving me all the tools that I need to be able to do my job. So there you go. Yeah.